Good. We've all heard the saying, the same old, same old. No one likes repetition. No one likes to see the same thing over and over and over again, which that can apply to many different things. But one of the things I want to talk about today is the repetition of maybe, say, the NBA playoff format. I've kind of been thinking that maybe changing the format would be much better in terms of TV ratings. It would change the way teams rest their players. It would change the way teams view one game at a time situations. But mainly what I really want to get to is the predictability factor. I think the NBA Finals lacks, or the NBA playoffs in general lacks what the NCAA tournament has, which is unpredictability. Say back in 2012, I believe, when Lehigh beat Duke, or last year when Middle Tennessee State beat Michigan State. We remember those things because the sports world was taken by surprise with these events. Well, when's the last time somebody not named LeBron James or Stephen Curry has been in the finals? It's same old. Before, since 2014 with the Spurs, but going back to that, only 2 teams out of the Eastern Conference has made it to the finals in the past 6 seasons, one being the Heat, one being the Cavs. And then out of the West, there's been the Spurs for 3 years straight, the Warriors for 2 years straight, and then the occasional Mavericks and Thunder. So, with just being 9 total teams in 7 years doesn't really change it up that much, and I think maybe changing it to just a 1 through 16 seeded playoff system would work much better. I feel like it would regain some of the interest that people have lost in the NBA who say it's rigged or fixed or stuff like that. But another thing I want to get to is how the NBA is resting their players lately, and I feel like this format would change it. Because in some of the ways, teams like the Cavs and the Warriors, once they've secured their 1 or 2 seed in the top of their conference, they'll rest their players against marquee opponents and stuff like that. And it hurts the franchise, it hurts TV ratings, it hurts ticket sales. But that's more of the business side of it. I don't really want to touch on that. I just want to touch on why I think this would change it. Because in this situation, it doesn't matter if you play the Warriors or the Hornets next. That one game could keep you from playing the Spurs in the first round or the Cavs in the first round to playing someone like the Jazz in a much better, favorable competition in your favor. So teams would have to take games much more serious. They would have much more of a playoff atmosphere towards the end of the season instead of 28 out of the teams resting their star players pretty much. But another thing I've noticed in the past few years, the Eastern Conference has had teams get in the playoffs with sub-500 records. And I don't think a lousy season should be rewarded with a chance to play for it all. Because in the West, a couple years back, I remember they had 2 teams that didn't make the playoffs that had winning records. I feel like they should have been rewarded over the Eastern Conference teams. I think it was the Bucks maybe and the Pistons both got in with lackluster records. And I don't think you should be guaranteed a spot in the playoffs just because of the conference you play in, and sometimes it's more lousy than it is stronger. Like say the West this year, everyone in the top 8's over 500, and then out of the East, I think the top 2 teams right now are right below 500. My way would essentially put the best 16 overall teams with their win percentages. It would put them seeded. Like say right now the Golden State Warriors would play, I think it said the Miami Heat or Chicago Bulls, whoever wins the next few games. That would be the one in the 16, essentially like the NCAA tournament, and it would go 2 to 15, and so on and so forth. And that would really take away the predictability. Like, I'm tired of seeing, it's not really good for basketball when the same 2 teams end up in the finals every season. I feel like this, and maybe not even having 7-game series with these matchups. I was thinking of proposing maybe a 1-game loser goes home, or maybe a 3-game series. Because let's face it, that's about, if you play 7 games a series, right now you'll have 4 series, so you're playing 28 extra games, which is essentially putting you at 110 games for the total season. And that's worst case scenario, say you do play all of these games. That's a lot of basketball. And I mean, it's hard enough playing an 82-game regular season and then going to playoffs and having a possible 28 more to go. And another thing that change is always a good thing in terms of sports. Look at college football. They just went from selecting the top 2 teams that they thought were worthy to play in the national championship to implementing a playoff system. And it's increased interest, it's increased all kinds of, but it's really just benefited the sport. It's brought back some of the people who've kind of strayed away from it, and it gives more teams a shot than just the 2 at the end. And the same thing with the with my playoff format. Like right now, I think the way some of the research I did had the Boston Celtics playing a Western Conference team, and I say that with significance, thinking that some of these Eastern teams only play their Western Conference opponents only 2 times a season. So if they were to get pitted up against somebody in this tournament play, like I'm supposing, they only have 2 games to watch and play these guys and get used to them. After they've gotten used to them, after you play them 4 times in the regular season, if they're in the same conference, I mean, you know all you need to know about these teams. I just feel like adding an extra opponent you don't see as often would really increase, would just increase interest, and that's my major point here. And like I said, it could come down between 1 loss, 1 win, playing the best or the worst. And same thing getting into the playoffs. If I go to that 1-game format, it could really change. And I think that's what the sports world needs when it comes to something like this. We're tired of seeing, like I said earlier, the same old. Repetition does get old after a while. And it would be nice to see other teams get a shot. I'm not saying in any way it would change the format or it would change the outcome of the 2 teams that would be in the finals. It would just give more teams a chance to make it. And that's really all that I'm proposing in my playoff format.